The first theme seems Slavic and nervous at times, searching and unsure. Almost rambling at times. Yet, at the same time, it's sort of insistent. There aren't very many breaks for the solo violin, and the music keeps striving higher and gets a little bit more excited and passionate. The second theme seems more playful and personal, almost like it's flirting, more intimate manner. It gets carried away a bit before rehearsal number 6, where it starts to descend very dreamily. But overall, the second theme is sort of like a release of the dark, melancholy feeling from the opening. He's setting up this drama of moods in the first movement, which is really not resolved until the last movement. The contrast of the two themes makes me think of the many masks that we wear, and the many things that are going on in our hearts and minds that can be there at the same time. You can have this sort of tragic, melancholic feeling, and yet there's a whole other side of you, another sort of chamber of your heart or silo, that you have this flirtatious, loving, sort of personal side. The form has, for the past 100 years, confused many people, and it still does. Concerto usually has 3 movements, fast, slow, fast. There are many, many examples of that, and of course there are many examples of ones that have more than 3 movements. A symphony, by contrast, typically would have the 4 movements, and the difference being the inserted scherzo movement or minuet movement or so forth. The scherzo-like quality at rehearsal number 20 reminds me that, or makes me think that perhaps Glazunov even wanted us to think of this as a sort of unified 4-movement structure. The whole 1-movement structure, as well as the quote-unquote interruption of the slow movement, that strikes me as being interesting in the context of the Romantic period as a whole, because a lot of Romantic authors and composers and artists even were fascinated with the idea of the fragment, something that wasn't fully enclosed, something that was sort of left off with ellipses. This also came out of their fascination with nature in general, and things that are a closed-off structure, but a more organic structure. A lot of Romantic composers and authors and so forth were also interested in the idea of bringing a memory back from something earlier in a piece. The return of the first movement theme would have to be in the low register, as it was in the beginning. But the interesting thing for me is Glazunov's choice of viola and bassoon, as opposed to having maybe the orchestra section violins play it on their G string, or even cellos. It's worth noting that Glazunov has nice parts for the violas many times in this concerto. And when I say nice parts, I'm talking about sometimes very, very short little things that pop out of the texture, but that seem to really highlight the viola sound.